You ever thought that the TV series we watch are inspired by real life? Could the events in Stranger Things really have happened? The MKUltra experiment was a program of research on human behavior and mind control that was conducted by the Central Intelligence Agency CIA from the early 1950s to the early 1970s. The program was officially aimed at understanding the use of biological and chemical agents on human subjects, as well as developing new methods of interrogation and control. The program was shrouded in secrecy and many of its activities were illegal and unethical. The scope of the program was broad and included experiments on subjects such as prisoners, mental patients, and members of the military. The methods used included hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, as well as administering drugs such as LSD, barbiturates, and mescaline to unwitting subjects. The experiments at the heart of Paige Cooper's story sound as if they are straight out of a dystopian conspiracy thriller, but they really happened. They were conducted in the 1950s and early 1960s by Dr. Ewan Cameron, a British-born psychiatrist and director of the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal. Cameron sought to develop what he saw as a revolutionary new psychiatric treatment, but his experiments were secretly funded by the CIA as part of what historian Alfred McCoy refers to as a veritable Manhattan Project of the mind. Cameron gave his procedures pseudoscientific names like depatterning and psychic driving. He varied them over time and from patient to patient, but they typically involve a mix of the following: drug-induced coma. Each experimental treatment for Cameron's patients would usually begin and conclude with sleep therapy. Depatterning. During the drug-induced sleep, patients would be woken up for feeding, the toilet, and to be given regular electroshocks which would start after about 3 days of sleep. The combined sleep electroshock treatment lasted between 15–30 days, sometimes up to 65 days, so that patients did not harm themselves as a result of the epileptic seizures caused by the ECT. They were immobilized with muscle relaxant drugs like Cure. In the standard electroshock therapy of the time, doctors would give patients a single dose of 110 volts, lasting a fraction of a second, every 1 or 2 days. However, by contrast, according to John Marks, Cameron used a form 20 to 40 times more intense, 2 or 3 times daily, with the power turned up to 150 volts. Cameron's aim, as stated in his 2-journal article in Comprehensive Psychiatry in 19623, was to cause disorientation and confusion via massive and pervasive memory disturbance. After this, according to his article, a patient might be unable to walk without support, to feed himself, and he's sick may show double incontinence. Psychic driving. Patients were next subjected to negative tape messages, e.g., "My mother hates me." The aim was to get rid of unwanted behavior, and then this would be followed by positive messages to condition in desired personality traits. The messages taken from recordings of Cameron's interviews with patients were played repetitively on a tape loop system via loudspeakers or a football helmet contraption for 16 hours a day for several weeks. Cameron sought to intensify the effect by placing his patients in a sensory deprivation box in the stables of the hospital and giving them cocktails of drugs which would immobilize them but keep them awake whilst they experienced hallucinations induced by psychedelic drugs. It is widely acknowledged that the program was a gross violation of human rights, and it has been widely criticized for the unethical nature of its activities. The U.S. government has issued formal apologies and provided compensation to some of the individuals affected by the program. It's important to note that the TV series Stranger Things is not based on the MKUltra program, and the experiments in the show are purely fictional and created for the purpose of the story's narrative. However, the show's storyline does have some references to the Cold War era and the government's involvement in secret experiments, which may be inspired by the real-life events such as the MKUltra program.